Now, if you're a fantasy owner or just a fan of literally any team besides the Jets this week, you are just heartbroken, especially if you're one of us too, i.e., Broncos fans and Niner fans. It's a bad week for injuries, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough week for injuries, but it's a great week for that blue injury tent. I mean, it got a lot of camera time. It was always at full capacity, but I mean, what is going on this year? I mean,
The turf, it's a MetLife turf, right?
the
The
turf in
flip.
MetLife is going to give me nightmares for the next 5 years, but I digress. Let's get into something more
For me,
uplifting.
it's just unlucky. I don't even know how to talk about that. But week two was wild in terms of injuries. I swear, like 20 people got hurt, or it like season injuring hurt. Everyone got hurt besides that. Whether it be all these ACLs, torn knees, or just stupid stuff. But let's just get on with it. Let's start with our Thursday night game because a lot of people, I mean, the Browns, Bengals, had stinker written all over it, but it ended up being a thoroughly impressive Thursday night game.
I mean, this is one of those games where on paper it's like one of those Titans Jags game where it would look so much better with those color rush uniforms. You got the
Oh, the
white versus the
mustard.
orange or something like that. But I mean, what the biggest takeaways I had from this game are two things. One, the Browns backfield is extremely dangerous. Nick Chubb is an elite runner. Kareem Hunt is an elite playmaker. He can be lined up on the edge. He can line up in the backfield. He's got extremely good hands, great run after the catch. They both have elite speed. And so, it's on paper, you see that wide receiving core, you see the tight end they brought in,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to say that they're a pass team. But if this team really buckles down and sticks to the ground game and sticks to getting the ball in their playmakers' hands, not too far down the line of scrimmage, because at this point, Baker Mayfield is just inept at throwing the ball 15 yards plus down the field, then that's where this team can raise their hat on or can rest their hat on. But the other takeaway I had was Joe Burrow has it. And you hear
Thank
it a
you.
lot. You hear it a lot being said, thrown around like, does this guy have it? Does this guy have it? And it's indescribable. But with Joe Burrow, you can see it on TV. You can see it, in his workouts and his interviews. He has poise. He has the competitive drive. He gets so pissed off with every loss, with every missed throw,
Mm-hmm.
with anything negative that happens, that this is a guy that you can look at as a franchise quarterback and have
Yeah.
confidence in for the next 9 to 10 years.
Well, what I noticed in that game is your point. He was controlling the pocket. He was moving
Mm-hmm.
defenders with his eyes. He was
Mm-hmm.
guiding his receivers. He was acting like he's been in the league for 15 years already. He just steps in and he makes plays and he gets stuff done. You got to love the SEC. I mean, people give the SEC all the credit, but it kind of deserves it in terms of transitioning to from college to pro because you're going against pro style defenses while running pro
Mm-hmm.
style offenses. So Joe Burrow already knows how to read the defense in this league. He already knows what to expect from them. Even with his crappy O line, he's still able to move around the pocket. I think Joe Burrow is one of those most underrated attributes is his pocket presence and his mobility. We saw his first touchdown ever in the NFL. He ran for like 20 yards. And then you saw a couple mistakes throughout the game, whether it be he held on the ball too long, he hit the second pat that you can't do in the NFL, especially with the Bengals offensive line. You cannot do
Mm-hmm.
that. There are a couple times where he
Exactly.
should have just thrown the ball away. But besides that, he's making typical rookie mistakes, but hardly. Joe
Mm-hmm.
Burrow is
Yeah,
legit, and the ups, his ceiling just keeps on getting higher and higher. This guy could be
yeah,
real good.
agreed. And the one thing I'll say, just to add on to Joe Burrow is, there's two types of athleticism as a quarterback. There's the athleticism like Kyler Murray, where, you can scramble around and make something out of nothing, which Joe Burrow does have some of that. But what is really elite about him is his pocket mobility. And you kind of touched on it a little bit. But he had pocket mobility like Tom Brady, where he can kind of move
Exactly. I mean, it's
and
all just
slide, and
right.
has that
It's
and then
just like the
some.
little
It's
lateral
natural to
movement.
him.
It's a
Yeah,
stepping up in the pocket. It's not having to look at where the defenders, but it's just that feeling, you know.
exactly.
So
He's got the feeling.
he's going to be good. And then if he
Yeah.
isn't, I will be absolutely shocked. But
Agreed.
also, is a Bengals thing to do to ruin that. So time will tell. Next one was a little bit less of an exciting game. We had the Giants and Bears, with the Bears taking this one 17-13, moved to 2-0 on the season. the Bears escape a late comeback attempt by the Giants, but at the same time, Mitch Trubisky wasn't good. He was back to the usual self. So we got that.
Yikes. I mean,
Oh.
this was one of those real snooze fest of the games. I mean, you see in the first half the Bears get out to a 17-0 lead, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, let's turn this game off for a while. And then you got the Saquon injury, which you saw on replay,
It was so bad.
dozens of times. But what
Mhm.
really kind of, yeah, what struck me about this game is that the Bears, you almost feel like for their offense to click, they have to be down by multiple scores because when they get conservative, Mitch does not have the accuracy down to be able to matriculate the ball down the field like a
Mhm.
typical quarterback would. He's got to be improvising. He's got to be pushing the ball down the field. If he gets in a long situation, he's going to make it 3rd and 1 because he's not going to be able to hit those throws.
Mhm.
Him and Allen Robinson are clearly not on the same page right now, which is not what you want to see from a number 1 wide receiver and a 3rd or 4th year starting quarterback. So this Bears team is, I think, one of the most fraudulent 2-0 teams that we have this year.
It's hard to argue that. At the same time, the Giants are just that Saquon injury is huge. They're like losing like Sterling
Nasty.
Shepard too and stuff like that. So like
Yeah.
two of the biggest parts of their offense. Without those guys, what do you lead Daniel Jones? He has nothing now. Who's already
Yeah.
kind of trying to get his footing in in the league. Like he could be a good quarterback, but obviously he needs a good supporting cast. He's not going to win the team with a bunch of nobodies like Joe Burrow seemingly can do. I mean, I'm not trying to call Tyler Boyd and AJ Green nobodies, but the way they're performing, it's a little iffy sometimes. But it's hard because they kind of hung Daniel Jones out to dry, like I said, and it's not the case of success. And the Giants are looking for a rough season already. And then the Bears,
Yeah. I mean,
no, I'm not buying it.
yeah, and one of the undercover positives from this game and from all the Giants injuries is it's almost kind of a built-in excuse now for Daniel Jones in his 2nd year. I mean, he's got full reign to throw the ball down the field, to fumble, to throw picks, to improvise with his feet. And at the end of the year, all you have to say is he didn't have Saquon, he didn't have his weapons. He went through a tumultuous season with all the injuries and having to play on MetLife Stadium eight times a year. And it's not the worst thing in the world for a young quarterback to have those built-in excuses. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to yield to success this year, but he's obviously going to have a longer leash, and hopefully he can rebound in his 3rd year.
Exactly. Now this next one was
Ooh-wee.
typical Falcons, but at the same time, Alex, you real hot on the Cowboys. I think you had them 3rd in your power rankings. You're really hot. They come out. It was a competitive game against the Rams, but they fell flat. Then they looked really bad the first quarter of this game, but they come back down 20-0. They win 40-39 against the perennial losers in the Falcons. How lucky were you?
I mean, let's just break this game down by phases. Phase 1, the first 4 possessions for the Cowboys, you had a 3 and out and 3 fumbles.
Yep.
You just gift the Falcons a 20-0 lead. I mean, yeah, here you go, Falcons. Have short fields. You don't want to give that offense any room to be able to put points up on the board early. And then you had down 15, I believe, in the 4th quarter. Cowboys go score. Mike McCarthy, the big analytics guy, down 9 with 5 minutes to go. Let's go. So that's a good idea. And obviously misses it because it's just a horrible call in that situation. I mean,
Yeah.
one situation, you get it, it's a 7-point game. The other situation, you kick the PAT and it's still a 1-possession game.
Mhm.
Doesn't make sense to me. But then you have the obvious onside kick blunder, and we don't have to beat a dead horse on this, but just what a horrible situation.
Just
I mean, you had
it.
3 Falcons
Just
in the
follow it.
area that were scared to touch the ball. Like, oh, I don't want to touch it. What if I touch it and accidentally fumble it? And then it also, once you get that onside kick, the Cowboys did still have to go down the field. CeeDee Lamb made big play after Dak showed poise. You had to worry a little bit about Jerry Jones's heart rate up in the booth there. It seemed like he was a little
He's about to die.
too excited. Yeah, so that's the one thing you had to worry about coming out of that game. But I think it was one of those games where the right team didn't win in that situation, but I think the right team is 1-1 coming out of that week. I think the Cowboys played well enough in their first 2 weeks to get one win out of those 2 weeks, and
Then
it's going to set them up for a division race that is not going to have much competition, I don't think.
another embarrassing loss for Dan Quinn. We'll talk about that in our segment after we finish the recaps. It might be time. It might be time there because it's.
I think he's got the seat warmers on in the Tahoe.
I think they're a little more than just warm. I think he's straight up just sitting on charcoals at this point. But I mean, you have the really good offense, a pretty good defense, and then you do this. It's inexcusable. Straight up, absolutely inexcusable. They have a culture of losing in games like this now.
Agreed.
And it might be time to change. But next one, speaking of cultures of losing and comebacks, let's bring on the Lions and Packers. Where they were down 21-0. Then the Packers come back to win 42-21. And I'm sorry, Lions fans. I know there's a couple of you that listen to this, and it's really bad. I really do feel bad for you guys. I feel bad for Matt Stafford. I feel bad for the other guys on the team. I feel bad for DeAndre Swift to be drafted to that team. Even though he kind of screwed you guys last week, I still have a little bit of pity for him. The Lions blew it again, but at the same time, Aaron Rodgers' revenge tour is still alive and is still well.
Here's the crazy thing about this whole coaching carousel and the Detroit Lions franchise here. The 3 years before Jim Caldwell got hired, 11-5, 7-9, 9-7, 2 playoff runs out of those 3 years. Combined, Matt Patricia has as many wins in his first 3 years than Jim Caldwell had in his last year with the team. I mean, I cannot fathom a franchise like that giving up on a guy that had 2 winning seasons out of 3 years and going to Matt Patricia, who, just does not look like he has.
Well, we all know what the real mistake
was,
Alex, because they chose to go for an outside coach when they had the perfect coach inside the organization. Remember Coach Jim Bob Cooter. He was the man to lead the franchise, and they abandoned.
What a great offensive coordinator.
They abandoned Jim Bob Cooter.
Yeah, I mean,
biggest mistake in franchise history. Second biggest. Biggest one was not paying Calvin Johnson.
When you're gifted that kind of name and offensive coordinator, it's almost irresponsible as a franchise to not give that guy at least a head coaching shot to sell tickets with his name.
At least interim coach, right?
Exactly. I mean, Coach Jim Bob Cooter at the microphone following the Lions 28-7 loss at the Falcons. I mean, that just rolls off the tongue.
You can't overlook Jim Bob Cooter. There's not much to say about this game. Lions suck. No. Packers are rolling. Simple as that. We'll talk about Matt Patricia later as well. He's one of the other ones. Now we got a very interesting battle of the crap, seemingly, or at least the Titans are in crap, but the division, the AFC South, just isn't good. Still had a really competitive game out this. Titans pulling out 33-30. I mean, Gardner Minshew still looking really good. Hell, screw a tank for Trevor, because you got Minshew Mania running wild right now in Jacksonville. And the Titans, man, that Tannehill Jonnu Smith connection is something. Who needs A.J. Brown the way that they're going right now?
I mean, I think the Titans would love to have A.J. Brown in the mix, to be totally honest with you. But here's one thing that you take away from how Ryan Tannehill has looked in the last 8 to 10 games that he's played with the Titans, is how bad of a coach is Adam Gase to completely ruin both Le'Veon Bell when he gets to the New York Jets. He was leading the whole NFL in average yards per game from scrimmage, and then now he's 27th or 28th or something like that.
Oh, no, so he went from not having a hamstring injury to having a hamstring issue, going back to his tweet that did not age well.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Gase just knows how to ruin players, and Ryan Tannehill looks like he just looks like he's a really good quarterback right now. He had one throw on Sunday where he had a 3-step drop off his back foot, sees a defensive lineman taking a beeline right at his grill, knows where he wants to go with the ball, stands in there for as long as he possibly could off the back foot, drops one right in the bucket, takes an absolute shot for a touchdown. And that's those type of throws that it takes confidence from a quarterback, it takes arm talent, and it takes absolute grittiness to be able to stand in there when a 290-pound behemoth is running straight at your grill. And this Titans team, they have their defense has not clicked yet. I'll give you that. And I think once that defensive line gets a little synchronicity and has some sort of impact on the game, this Titans team is gonna run away with the division, and it's gonna be a dangerous team that you don't want to play in December and January when Derrick Henry's kind of rolling. Tractor Cito.
The crazy thing was before the season, they had the whole Bud Light Gardner Minshew promotion. You take Gardner Minshew in the first round, your fantasy team, and you win the league. You get beer for a year, free beer for a year. Gardner Minshew has back-to-back 3 touchdown games. Throws for 300, almost 350 yards this game, and he might have it. If we're talking about Joe Burrow having it, Gardner Minshew. Who the hell would have thought that he's a legitimate pick at this point for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean he looks like he is under control. Mm-hmm. There are moments never too big for him in the play, in the game. It's really shocking to see that no one gave this guy a chance. They saw he was undersized, was a system quarterback at Washington State, but what he's shown is that through all the gimmicks, through the hair, through the mustache, through the jockstrap dancing in the locker room, this guy knows how to play on the field and can put together plays and drives and games that really instill confidence in a team. And it's someone that you want to play behind if you're a teammate of his. And I think the Jaguars might have stumbled into something that they didn't think and almost didn't want to happen this year.
It's like they want Trevor, but at the same time, I mean, next week is going to be a big-time challenge for Gardner Minshew going against a very talented Miami Dolphins team. Very personal game, as Ryan Fitzpatrick has come out and said it's beard versus mustache. So we will see blood. We will see absolute carnage on that gridiron because this is going to be a battle for the ages. Beard versus mustache. Who will be victorious? And if you want, just let's talk disappointment. Vikings fans.
Oh my gosh,
Vikings fans. I'm so sorry. They're supposed to have a solid defense. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. I mean, Kirk Cousins wasn't supposed to suck like this. But it's Kirk Cousins. He's the epitome of inconsistency. Sometimes he's looks like one of the most well-developed quarterbacks in the league. Then other times he's throwing 3 interceptions, and they're getting beat down by a Colts team that lost to the Jags last week.
Yeah, I mean, this just it's not a good look for the Vikings. They were dead in the water from the snap, and if the Colts didn't kick 4 or 5 field goals throughout the entire game, I mean, this final score would have looked a lot differently. But I mean, this Vikings team, they just look like they almost rolled over from the first drive of the game. I mean, Kirk Cousins looks awful. Their skill position players, it's Adam Thielen or nothing. Jefferson has not made an impact yet.
Kyle Rudolph is still underutilized in that offense.
Yeah, and it's just like there's nothing that's exciting about this team. Even Dalvin Cook has almost kind of been hamstrung a little bit. And if he didn't have that garbage time touchdown in the fourth quarter when the game was already decided, this team just I don't know where they go from here because they have so much invested in their defense. They have so much invested in their skill position guys. They're paying Kirk Cousins $30 million a year. There's just not a lot of excitement with this team.
No, it's hard to say anything much more than what's already been said. I don't want to pile on you guys too much, so let's roll to a Bills team. Bills and Dolphins. Bills coming away from this one 31-28 in a game that was closer than it should have been, considering all the turnovers, and we saw the worst of Ryan Fitzpatrick in this. I mean, Josh Allen, he was really good. He was really good. 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. He is looking like a legit quarterback. And, I mean, if he brushes off the inconsistency that you may have, he is one of the best quarterbacks we can see right now in hell. Might sound like an overreaction, Blake. Or, Alex, my bad. Gotta get mixing on my correspondence here. But, dark horse MVP, Josh Allen.
Agreed. And I think the biggest difference you see from Josh Allen this year from last year is the addition of Stephon Diggs and Zach Moss. People talk about Stephon Diggs. He's the sexy name that they brought in, but Zach Moss also adds another dimension to this team.
Really good.
Along with along with Devin Singletary, him and Zach Moss have a really, really good thing going out of the backfield. And with John Brown and Stephon Diggs both being able to stretch the field vertically, Stephon Diggs can run the whole route tree. John Brown can get behind the defense. They can both run underneath routes. They have almost everything you need from an offensive standpoint. And with Josh Allen pulling the trigger from under center, they don't have many holes on the offensive side, and we're not even talking about the defense yet, who's underperformed to this point, and is still kind of ready to wake up a little bit.
Especially if Stephon Diggs continues this. I mean, his second game with the Bills was big, 150 yards, a touchdown, 8 receptions.
Yep.
That if he could maybe not produce that much a game, but if he could consistently be that 100-yard receiver, get about 10 catches a game, maybe have a touchdown or not. If he could just be that guy for them, that's going to help Josh Allen tremendously. That's going to open up opportunities for the other receivers for that as well. The offense is going to click.
Yep,
so
agreed.
The Bills, they're a good team. Legitimately good team. And now, next game, we have the 49ers at the old trash turf in the MetLife. The Niners win 31-13. But at what cost? At what cost, Alex?
Too much. I mean, I would love to sit this game out in the recap here, but I mean, let's just go over it. Bosa, Thomas, Mostert, Kittle, Garoppolo.
Mm-hmm.
2 of those guys out for the. I mean, you give away DeForest Buckner. You give you give away DeForest Buckner in the offseason. You get Javon Kinlaw, who hasn't made too much of an impact thus far, but you bank on Solomon Thomas making a jump. You bank on Dee Ford being able to actually stay healthy this year. You think Nick Bosa is going to be able to make the jump from Rookie of the Year to Defensive MVP, and you lose. Dee Ford's not healthy right now. Solomon Thomas out for the year. Nick Bosa out for the year. Mostert's dealing with a sprained MCL. Garoppolo with a dreaded high ankle sprain. I mean, what? This is one of those post Super Bowl years that you just almost want to get over with before things get super bad.
Alex, I don't want to rub it in, but we know there's.
We'll get to your team. Don't you worry.
I got things to say. Don't you worry about that. But it's like around the streak of 10 years now, where one of the 4 championship weekend teams has not made the playoffs. I always think it was more the Packers this year, but between the 4 that we've seen, unfortunately, it might be the Niners. At least
I don't want to keep talking about it. You can.
At least you have Raheem Mostert getting an 80-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. So
that's kind of his MO this year. It's just let's get big touchdowns and then disappear for the rest of the game.
Whether it be 60 yards at the very beginning, 80 yards, doesn't matter. If you're a fantasy owner, you're happy because big play bonus points too. Those are huge.
Oh, yeah.
And now, the LA Rams just beat up on the battered Eagles.
I tried to tell you, Ross.
You tried to tell me, and I am really starting to listen now. 37-19. The Rams just keep rolling. The Eagles are not a good team right now. Miles Sanders is back, but not really. He was back in the lineup. That's about it. But the Rams continue to look legit, and it's all thanks to Jared Goff not sucking and actually looking good in the offense once again.
I mean, here's the thing from last year with the Rams is everyone kind of assumed that they had that Super Bowl hangover, but they went 9-7. They lost some close games. Jared Goff looked a little underwhelming at sometimes, but the whole bare bones of the team was still there, and they made huge investments. They got Jalen Ramsey. They brought in some running back help with Cam Akers, who got hurt this week, unfortunately. But, Tyler Higbee's emerged as an absolute threat at the tight end position. Their defense looks incredible. Aaron Donald, week after week, does something that really, really just shocks me. And I think this Rams team
How are you still surprised? But it's hard.
Gosh, man, he's so good.
Well, he's so good. Like, he makes these remarkable plays every time, but at the same time, I feel guilty because I'm almost not impressed anymore because I just expect him to manhandle everyone.
A double team does not phase that man.
You mean triple team might have a chance?
And a double team with a running back chipping, and the running back just gets manhandled. Oh my gosh! I mean,
He's
this team is
unbeatable.
this team with, and this was one of the teams that, besides their running back trio, which is one spot where they can actually afford some injuries, they have not been hit by the injury bug yet. And if they can stay healthy this year, they can be an 11, 12, even 13 win team in the NFC.
This just in: Alex jinxes the hell out of the Rams. Jared Goff and Aaron Donald
I'm
are
okay if
both
I
going
jinx
out.
them. I would love,
Oh, you're
I would
okay.
love that. I mean, make it easy for the Niners, but I think this team's got the top end talent to compete
Mhm.
in the NFC.
Yeah, and if we want to go from a better team of the Eagles, let's talk about the Denver Broncos. You lose
Woo.
the man in Von Miller on a freak accident on the last play of practice a week before the season starts. You lose Cortland Sutton week one with a sprained shoulder. He was back for a little bit this game. The franchise favorite quarterback, the guy that's supposed to stop the never-ending quarterback carousel, gets injured in the first quarter, and he's out for 3 to 5 weeks. Cortland Sutton, knee injury, torn ACL, he's out for the season. You got Jeff Driscoll, and now at least I still got hope, Alex. The Super Bowl run is happening because you have the boat coming into Denver.
Hey.
Blake Bortles here to save the season. Blake Bortles,
Oh my
the man that
gosh.
has a better interception ratio than Tom Brady in the playoffs. Blake Bortles, future Super Bowl MVP for the Broncos.
I mean, you forget that this guy went to an AFC Championship game and was pretty close to almost making a Super Bowl a couple of years
If it
back.
wasn't for his defense choking,
Yeah.
he could be a Super Bowl champion.
I mean, it's
But
ridiculous. But
man, Ben Roethlisberger still looking solid. For that Steelers offense, is looking like the old Steelers offense. James Conner
mhm.
making his presence felt. Well, and if we talk Joey Bosa going out for the year, this it just means T.J. Watt is just given the trophy now, Defensive Player of the Year. It's him, but Bud Dupree also looking phenomenal in that. My one positive from the Broncos is that they were battered as hell. They were super injured, but they still made it a close game. Arguably, they were like the Pittsburgh. They ended up at like the Pittsburgh 15 until they turned the ball over on downs. The
Yeah.
Broncos, you could argue they choked this game. it's
I mean, I think this is one of those situations where, and you see it, whenever a starting quarterback gets hurt, the favorite team at home is up by a couple scores. The backup comes in. They have no idea what the backup's doing because they didn't spend any time in the film room and practice preparing for him. The guy kind of just slings it around. You saw it in the Chargers Chiefs game.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers kind of took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit.
mm-hmm.
I think they might have just let this Broncos team back into it a little bit. It got hairy at the end there, but this Steelers team was dominating the game
Yeah.
the whole time.
That defense
think
is still
this-
plenty legit.
Yeah, I mean this Steelers defense, if they can game plan for a team and game plan for a specific quarterback, it's going to be tough to put up more than 20 points on them.
Mm-hmm.
And with the offense, it's not clicking where it should be. I think where it's going to be towards the middle of the year, but it's a complete team, and it's a team you don't want to face when it's late in the year and you got Heinz Field getting all muddy and sloppy, and it's cold out there, and it's just one of those teams where it's not going to be fun to play them late in the year in the playoffs.
No. I had some hope. The Steelers are still going to be really good. They're really close to actually being a top 5 NFL team. Broncos, I was hoping 8-8, 9-7, sneaking to the 7th round, the 7th spot.
Later.
6-10, here we come, Denver. Let's.
Get
Yeah.
ready. Start scouting the draft this right now.
I don't even care at this point. It hurts. Let's talk about a team that I don't have, or a couple teams that I don't care about. The Bucks beat up on the Panthers. Brady gets his first win in Tampa. The Tampa era is actually officially underway now. 31-17. Tom Brady looking better. I mean, 200 yards, a touchdown, an interception. It looked, the stats don't tell the story, because if you watch the game, he looked like the biggest problem for the Bucks in week 1 was that their offense just wasn't clicking. There wasn't chemistry. It looked better in this game. Leonard Fournette put the team on his back, 100 yards, couple touchdowns. Mike Evans looked solid, but I'm still a little worried about Tom Brady.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. Is I'm worried about Tom Brady. I'm worried about his mobility behind a bad offensive line. I'm worried about his arm strength with two receivers that have, their main weapon is their down the field playmaking.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that, in New England they didn't have downfield threats. They had guys that could work underneath. They had, tight ends that were able to catch the ball and run after the catch with it. And I don't know if this offense is conducive to a guy like Tom Brady, because he likes to kind of, slowly matriculate the ball down the field, throw short, throw over the middle. And Gronk looks absolutely washed. I'm worried about him making
2
it through
games,
the year.
2 catches, 11 yards.
He didn't have a catch this game. I
No.
mean, that's just it's not what. And honestly, I kind of thought this was going to happen with Gronk because
The Patriots won the trade.
yeah, I
Shocker.
mean, you just worry about it. But I'm not impressed by this Bucks team. This Panthers team is just going to be the dumpsters or the cellar team of the year with no Christian McCaffrey for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I'm worried about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the Bucks have what it takes to be a competing team. What's going to work in their favor, though, is they have a super easy schedule over the first 8 weeks. So they're going to come out of it with
Shocker. Thankful
5 to
against Tom
6
Brady, easy schedule.
Of
Haven't
course,
seen
I
this
mean
one before.
5 to 6 wins, but this is just not one of those teams that I'm worried about.
Alex, would it be crazy to say that Jameis Winston is a better fit? And I'd rather, for that team, it would be better to have Jameis Winston there than Tom Brady.
I think
Is that a stretch?
you're not wrong, but what I think is the case there is Jameis brings your ceiling up, but he makes your floor way
As a
lower
fan,
than Tom Brady does.
as a coach, would you rather Jameis or Tom Brady right now from
If-
what
if-
we've seen?
If
Tom
you
Brady.
take those exact same players and you remove the names from them,
Mhm.
I would take the Jameis Winston quarterback 9 times out of 10. But because it's Tom Brady and because he's got that name award, and because Jameis Winston's kind of the laughing stock of the league last year with all the turnovers, as a fan, I'd probably want Tom Brady, but I don't think he's the right fit for this offense, and they're going to be hard-pressed to get any sort of action, when it comes January and February.
If you want to see dink and dunk offense, put him on the division rivals. Tom Brady's better on the Saints. If we,
Oh, my gosh.
oh, how's that?
Just
We'll
really
talk
really
about
bad
them soon.
quarterbacks.
Next
Bad
one,
quarterback division.
kind of a Matt Ryan's the best quarterback in that division. Don't at me. The Cardinals beat up on the Washington football team 30-15. Kyler Murray continues his early MVP race. 280 yards, touchdown, still a decent amount of rushing yards. Kenyon Drake doing decent. I mean, all around, this wasn't a there's no one person that really stood out this game. It was just a really good team win. Defense did what they needed to do. The offense took advantage of that team, and I was more impressed by the offensive line not giving up 50 sacks this week. So, I mean, it's not that their O-line was bad in the first week. It was that Washington's D-line was really good in the first week. So that's a highlight.
Here's the most impressive thing about Kyler Murray this first 2 weeks is that I think he went up against the two of the top 3 defensive lines in the NFL. With
At
the
least
Niners,
they were
and
one on the top.
okay, yeah. At the time they played, they were 2 of the top D lines in the NFL.
Had to.
And what he's been able to do against these athletic pass rushers is it doesn't matter if you spy him, it doesn't matter if you pinch the ends, it doesn't matter if you come at him as hard as possibly can. He's able to score him and get around and make something out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And his ability to improvise, his ability to throw the ball down the field to Kirk, to DeAndre Hopkins, and you got probably one of the most savvy receivers right now with sure hands and Larry Fitz running the underneath stuff, running the middle stuff. And, Kenyon Drake has not really shown what he did last year in a couple stretches, but if he gets unlocked, if, they're able to continue to push the ball down the field to Hopkins and Kirk, this offense is scary, and its floor is extremely high week to week because of what Kyler can do and what Kyler can do to wreck and defensive game plan week after week.
It looks like Cliff Kingsbury offense is actually starting to work in the NFL. Who would have
He's
thought,
going to have
right?
more success in the NFL than he did at Texas Tech and the Big 12.
That's so
Crazy.
stupid of a thing to think about.
Crazy.
But it is what it is. Staying on the West Coast, though, the Chiefs escape. The defending Super Bowl
Whew.
champs escape with the win, get bailed out by your kicker because he just made back-to-back 50 is the
How
first
impressive was that? My gosh.
Bucker, man, 58-yard kick to win it. Really?
Two of them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the first one timeout as a kicker, of course.
53.
He made the 53 one too, but it sinks to the two in a row, the 58 to win it. But the thing is, there's still a lot of hope for the Chargers because that defense looked, even though you're missing your key pieces on defense, your safety. But that Chiefs offense didn't look. No, even for Chiefs standards, it didn't look good. It just wasn't clicking. That defense was doing well. The Chargers offense was doing well. Chargers fans have hope because a man that wasn't even supposed to be starting, but Herbert has a solid debut. He looked good in the pocket. Of course, he made some mistakes, but he wasn't. He didn't even know if the reports are true. He didn't even know he was starting until like an hour before the game. So
I think less than that.
less than that, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I was really impressed by him, and there's a lot that there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of potential.
And I want to actually spend some time on this Chargers team from this game because I think there's a couple takeaways you have here. Herbert looked very, very solid in his debut. I think it was, another one of those situations where you kind of just throw the rookie into the mix. He probably didn't have that many snaps in practice. Tyrod was a full participant each day. He showed some things that you got glimpses of in college. You saw that he had the playmaking ability to push the ball down the field. He had the scoot a little bit to get around the outside, make a first down. But what really kind of stuck out to me was he looked like he was unflappable out there. It doesn't matter if the Chiefs were bringing pressure. It doesn't matter if it was a 2nd and 30. He was going to get half. He was converting those long third downs. He just looked like he was extremely comfortable back there. And that's something that's very, very rare from a guy that everyone thought was overdrafted, was too high, was overhyped. And I think he proved a lot of the doubters wrong. But one other thing I want to touch on here is that I don't know if this is one of those situations where the Chiefs, you have to worry about their offense. I think this is just how good the Chargers defense is. Gus Bradley put together a game plan that just made the Chiefs uncomfortable the whole game. You never thought that they had that ability to just, cut the defense in half, with a series. They had a couple big plays down the field where Tyreek Hill is just faster than everyone on the field. But Mahomes looked uncomfortable. Their defensive line was getting after him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was shut down. Their leading rusher on the day was Patrick Mahomes, especially from that last series. He might have had more rushing yards than Clyde.
Well, he's just converting
game.
3rd and 20 by himself.
It was ridiculous, but I think this Chargers defense is a top 5 defense in the NFL, and especially with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram on the bookends, they are dangerous.
If only that Derwin James. If only.
That's the one thing too that really kind of chaps my hide this year is that Derwin James is one of those guys that when you have defensive ends that are crashing the quarterback like that and making the offense rush a little bit, you want a playmaker on the back end like Derwin James that can force turnovers and cause havoc. And the fact that they've been deprived of that over the last 2 years is disappointing. But the fact that this Chargers defense still looks like this without one of their, top 10 picks last year is really, really impressive. And I'm excited to see where this can go if they start Herbert, which it doesn't look like they're going to do.
Well,
but,
I was just about to say,
should.
The worst part about this week was head coach Anthony Lynn coming out and saying, if Tyrod is healthy, if he's 100% healthy, he's the starter. No.
Oh my gosh.
No. Justin Herbert is the starter. Moving on. It doesn't matter how healthy Tyrod is. It doesn't matter if he's 110%. You are starting Justin Herbert because he's the future of this franchise, and you have to get him on the field. You have to follow up a game like that. Tyrod's not the answer. He never has been. He never will be. You have to start Justin Herbert.
And here it's a sneaky good move by Coach Anthony Lynn because a guy that's been on the hot seat over the last couple of years now has that little nugget in the back of your head like, oh, I'm going to start Tyrod because, it's still going to leave that little nugget of hope that, once they start Herbert, then it's going to be able to, they're going to start picking up wins. But he doesn't have to play that trump card just yet. He can wait until he's really on the hot seat. And then just wait till Herbert gets in. He's got to give him a year. It's,
oh, man.
it's a sneaky good move for job security. But, it's clear that Tyrod is not the answer there. He's not going to be the one that's going to, yield success week to week, and Herbert's the guy. But, hats off to Anthony Lynn for doing whatever he can to preemptively save his job.
100%. Next game, we had the Ravens and Texans. I mean, it was a good game, but it was honestly, this isn't really anything to write home about because you just had the Ravens just rolling on offense, limiting that Texans when they were on defense. And I mean, they were solid on solid in quarterback play. Lamar Jackson, another good game. The running game still good. It kind of hurt me. Mark Andrews was really quiet this game, not good for fantasy. And then their defense just stifled the depleted Texans offense because, man, they've really been missing DeAndre Hopkins, and it is obvious.
Yep. It's evident. And I mean, I think this showed that Marlon Humphrey is a top 5 cornerback in the league, and he absolutely shut down Will Fuller this week. This is one of those rare situations where Will Fuller was actually on the field and healthy for a game and didn't put up any stats. But I think one of the most, impactful takeaways that we can bring from this game is that the Ravens offense, no matter who they put in the backfield with Lamar, whether it's Gus Edwards, who was their leading rusher today, 10 carries for 73 yards. Ingram had 16 for 54. Lamar, 9 for 55. Dobbins only had 2 carries and almost put up 50 yards. 2 for 48. They had 4 guys that almost put up 50 yards each. And it seems like they have an endless amount of weapons. You didn't even get to see the passing game this week because they didn't need it at all. They had this game on autopilot from the second quarter. This team is scary, and it is brewing to be one heck of a Monday night show that I think is going to have a similar feel to that Rams-Chiefs game from about 2 years ago, 54-51. Don't at me right now, but I think it's going to be one of those sneaky, exciting games that ESPN's going to try to juice the ratings. They're not going to call holding penalties. They're going to let those guys run around, and they're going to put some points on the board this Monday.
Let's hope so, because that might be better than the Monday night game we got this week. And now this nightcap, Patriots at Seahawks.
Ooh-wee.
A really hyped up game. I was so intrigued by this matchup based on what we saw in week 1. And I got to tell you that this game was, out of this season so far, this young 2-week season, this is my game of the year so far. This, in terms of personal agreement and enjoyment of what we've seen, the action we saw on field, it was really good. I do gotta say before we get into the breakdown, I disagree with the Patriots play calling when they're at the 1 because it was too obvious to me. We saw the same earlier. They ran. They had another goal to go with the 1. They ran the same play. I love the play though. Instead of just lining up under center, instead of just doing the little QB sneak, you give Cam Newton options. You give him multiple gaps to run the ball through. And you have a big guy like Cam Newton, he can make a play. What I was hoping for in that last play was a boot with multiple options because because you give Cam Newton the option to run the football. Because if he bites hard on the run, the linebacker steps up, that opens up the ball in the back of the end zone. Or you just have the drag route across, or Cam Newton just takes himself and runs over someone like he's really good at doing.
So before we get into the breakdown here, because I do want to talk about some of the ins and outs of this game.
Yeah.
Is this a situation where we're playing the result because it didn't end up going well, or are we actually thinking that this was a bad play call? Because I think this is one of the exact same situations that the Seahawks and the Patriots were at in the Super Bowl, where when you have a power back like Marshawn Lynch and you're on the 2 yard line, you give the ball to your horse and you're going to go down with that guy. And I think this is the same situation you had with the Patriots. It doesn't matter to me if the defense knows it's coming. If everyone knows it's going to happen, you got to put the ball in Cam's hands. I think they should have run right instead of left this time because the defense was obviously overloaded to that side. But you got to go down with your horse. You got to show confidence in Cam that he's going to be able to get that yard to get in. The defense made a great play. They were slashing. They beat their blocks.
Just stuff them in the backfield. Really, it's good stuff.
But I'm not pissed off with the play because you're going down with your horse. You're going down with the play that got you there. They already ran that play this year in this game. Got a touchdown.
Same situation.
They already showed the play action to to Johnson earlier in the game. And I think that you can't fault them for going with the guy that got them there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they would have looked back and they would have run some sort of cute play action and, he would have got sacked in the backfield or threw the ball over the guy's head, you're like, why did they just give the ball to Cam and run a power, from the goal line? And so I'm not pissed with the call. I think it shows confidence in a quarterback that's in his first year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're playing the result right now that because they got stuck in the backfield, that it was a bad call. But I don't disagree with the call.
See, I don't know if it was a bad call, but I just don't think it was a...
Defense made a play. Defense made a great play.
And I just thought it was too predictable. But sometimes that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. But the game itself.
The game itself was an incredibly well played out game, and I think it kind of shed light on a couple things that both scare me about the Seahawks, excite me about the Seahawks, and the same thing with the Patriots. The Patriots get out to that 7-0 lead, and you're like, uh-oh, is this going to be one of those games where, the Patriots defense gets, a defensive touchdown, they get a special teams, they get a block punt or something like that. Cam, doesn't play extremely well, but, they eke out a 20-17 win. But what this showed was that Cam has the ability to throw the ball. He's been accurate. He's been very, very precise with some of his throws. His throws have zip on him. It seems like his shoulder's healthy. Josh McDaniels has unlocked something. He threw for 397 yards today. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's a testament to him being a good quarterback and being able to throw the ball this year, or if it's just the Seahawks having that bad of a pass defense. I mean,
put more on Cam Newton and Josh McDaniels being a good, phenomenal play caller. Awful head coach. He was 5-11 with the Broncos. At least he drafted Tim Tebow, so that was cool. But he's a lot better with just offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it will touch on this a little bit later on the power rankings, but I'm worried about the Seahawks defense. They don't have a good pass rush. Their secondary is more geared towards stopping the run than stopping the pass. I mean, Jamal Adams is an incredibly, incredibly gifted run stuffer, playmaker from the safety position, but he doesn't have the greatest coverage skills. They've been torched 2 straight weeks. It's not going to stop here in the next week going against Dallas. But, Russell Wilson, time and time again, makes plays. He's one of those guys you just don't want to see on the opposite sideline. And, he's got to be the MVP this year, right? He's the front runner.
At the very least, he has to at least get a vote this year, right?
Exactly.
Just give him a vote. But like they said during the game, just let Russ cook.
Mm-hmm.
Let Russ cook.
Yeah, let him cook.
And now the Monday night game was, at least for me and a lot of people, it was a disappointment. Not in terms of the game, because it was a good game, very competitive game. You had the Saints get out to a 10-0 lead, and then they blow it. Yeah, Michael Thomas tweeting from his couch back at home, saying that this one is going to be a blowout or something like that. And oh boy, did he have to eat those words, because the Raiders come back. They win their inaugural game as the Las Vegas Raiders in brand new Allegiant Stadium, a $2 billion Roomba, and they win this one 34-24. And the big thing is that we have to ask coming out of this game, is Drew Brees done?
I think there's not much debate anymore. I mean, the guy could not push the ball down the field. I mean, even the thing is that they don't have a lot of downfield threats. I mean, Traquan Smith you thought would be a downfield threat, but he made his hay today, with underneath routes and, kind of going over the middle and running after the catch. But, I think this is an indictment on the Saints' inability to be any sort of, have the ability to push the ball down the field. They thrived on the underneath routes. They thrived with, Alvin Kamara ran the ball well, but he was catching the ball out of the backfield. They didn't have an ability to stretch the defense. And when you have a defense that doesn't have the worry about someone going over the top of them, they can crowd the box. They can crowd the line of scrimmage. They can make life extremely difficult. They can create negative plays, which puts your offense behind the sticks.
Well, what that Raiders defense is going, they were just lining up saying, "Hey, Drew Brees, I dare you to push the ball 10 yards down the field."
And he couldn't do it.
Especially Michael Thomas out dramatically hurt Drew Brees' ability to push the ball downfield, because Emmanuel Sanders, really good pickup, really good guy to have on the team, but he's a wide receiver 2. He's not a wide receiver 1. He needs the Michael Thomas to be able to make the big plays. Emmanuel Sanders is not going to take the roof off the defense. He's going to be he's going to be a really good receiver. He's going to get open. He's going to have his time. But you need the Michael Thomas. You need the wide receiver one. You need the top two wide receiver in the league. And without that, the offense is just it's sad. I mean, Drew Brees put some numbers, 300 yards.
It's not exciting at all. It's just also one of the biggest takeaways I had from this game is that Derek Carr, something about him just really bothers me. I mean, he's got that face where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in such control of this game. I'm such a good player. I'm making all the right plays. But in all reality, dude, you're just throwing the ball 5 yards down the field. You're not making exciting plays. You're checking the ball down. I mean, he had 4 or 5 different plays today on Monday where he rolled out. You saw that he had a dragger 2 yards in front of the line of scrimmage, and he's like, oh, let me fake look down the field. And then, obviously what I'm going to do is check the ball down. But, something about him just bothers me. And it's like, I can't get behind that guy.
I know exactly what bothers me about him. It's that it looks like he belongs in Green Day with his eyes looking like he's wearing eyeliner the whole time. I don't know if it's a natural look. Gosh, I don't know if he actually puts on eyeliner. To each their own.
He looks like that.
He is in
that
Vegas.
Villain from Toy Story. I forget what that kid's name was, but yes, Sid. It's just something about him just like reminds me of that kid. Like when he was younger, he had like those wristbands and always wore black and always kept the buzz cut and just I don't know. He just
the Raiders are perfect for him.
I can't. I just can't get behind him.
I also just can't get behind the Raiders. But there we go. One hell of a struggle of week 2. And oh boy, was it a struggle in terms of injuries, but also is a struggle in terms of coaches. So that leads us right into our next segment. Week 1, we overreacted. Now in week 2, it's time to break out the hot seat, Alex. 4 coaches, 4 very, very hot chairs they are sitting on. Now, we just have to ask, should these coaches be fired? The first coach is the illustrious Dan Quinn of the Atlanta Falcons, perennial choker. Just not good. Does Dan Quinn deserve to be fired, or when will he be fired by?
I don't understand how this guy's been able to keep his job over the last couple of years. I mean, I think his biggest asset as a coach is he almost just kind of makes people feel bad for him. Everyone's kind of just like, gosh, Dan Quinn's got it rough right now. He lost 28-3 in the he squandered a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl.
In the game that they should have just ran the football.
Yeah, I mean, he had this monumental collapse in the fourth quarter against the Cowboys, and you just almost feel bad for the guy, and it's like, I don't want to fire him. He's probably got it, rough as it is. But I think it is time. I think it's, it's gone on long enough that you're wasting Julio Jones's, Matt Ryan's, and now even Calvin Ridley's prime years. I mean, their offense is freaking elite, and they do not have anything to show for it right now besides a Super Bowl loss and nothing else the last couple of years. Have just been so underwhelming. It's time to change something at the helm. It's time to bring in an actual defensive coach, not Dan Quinn, who's a fake defensive coach, but someone who actually has some defensive prowess and maybe give Matt Ryan and the offense some help.
My thing about Dan Quinn, it's like, I'll give you the analogy. It's like pulling the goalie in hockey.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not necessarily the goalie's fault that he's having a bad night. Sometimes you get the bad bounces. You just get a really good offense in front of you. Like we saw in Game 2 watching Dallas Stars, just their goalie just get picked apart by that power play of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're just moving the puck, putting the goalie in really bad situations. But the goalie does have some blame. Definitely has some blame. And a lot of times when you pull the goalie, it's because he's not having the best game, but also sometimes you just need a change of pace. Dan Quinn needs to be fired from his job, not because he's a bad head coach. He's a decent coach. He does have this big flaw of blowing these huge leads, which is obviously a big problem. But at the same time, I believe the organization, the Atlanta Falcons, just needs a change in culture. It's like having Ron Rivera come up to the Washington football team. They need to change the culture. They need to change something, and that starts with your head coach. It's not necessarily his fault. He plays a role, but his time in Atlanta is done. It's over.
I think it's time for Dan Quinn to be relieved of his duties.
I think he
and
does
land
make it to the end of the season, though.
I think he does too, but I think next year he needs to be reunited with the Seahawks defense. Maybe try to turn that defense around. I think he's one of those good coordinator, bad head coaches kind of guys. And
That's not a bad thing to be, though. There's no shame
it's
in
really
that.
not, but it's
There's no
almost
shame.
like you got to stay in your lane almost, and you got to realize what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Like McDaniels, like we just talked
Yeah.
about. So,
Agreed.
it works. Next coach is another perennial choker and a lot more of a loser, though. Matt Patricia. As you mentioned, you gave us the numbers.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad.
It's all about pedigree. There's a lot of coaches that come from Alabama because they were under Nick Saban. They be put in the NFL or some other places around college football. Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator for the Patriots dynasty, working under the greatest coach of all time, Bill Belichick. He comes to Detroit. He pretty much reincarnates the Patriots defense over there in Detroit. And what does he have to show for it? About nothing.
9 wins. 9 wins.
In 3 years.
30. Ridiculous.
And
9 wins in 34 games.
In blown games. Matt
Really,
Patricia
really bad.
is not making it through the end of the season. I'd be surprised if he makes it another 2 weeks.
9 wins and a tie. I apologize. I did not give him credit for the tie last year, week
Because
1.
it's not a win, but it's not a loss.
Definitely not a loss. And, honestly, at this point, a tie would be a addition on Matt Patricia's resume.
It'd be improvement.
Which is, gosh, man. I mean, this is one of those things where it doesn't look like he knows what's going on the sideline. It doesn't look like he has any control of the team. Matt Stafford is more of a head coach than Matt Patricia is at this point. You feel bad for Matt Stafford. You feel bad, like you said, for all these guys that just got drafted to the Lions. But there's not a lot looking up for this franchise. And Matt Patricia is the head of it. He needs to be held accountable, needs to be a new coach by the end of this year.
I say he doesn't make another 3 weeks.
I hope you're right.
The next one that also he will not make another 3 weeks.
Gosh, I don't want to talk about this guy too much. But,
Okay, let's talk about the guy that
gosh.
Adam Gase, the career ruiner. I blame Adam Gase for the turf. It's his fault. He ruined the turf.
I think he installed it all himself.
Well, if you want to talk about anything that he installs offensively, doesn't work. Adam Gase, there's not much to say about him. There's no case to make about him. Adam Gase is ruining Sam Darnold. Fire him. He should have been fired 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many positives to say about the guy from a coaching standpoint.
Is there one?
From a personality standpoint, there's literally nothing. I mean, here's the one good thing you can say about Adam Gase.
Okay.
He coached with Peyton Manning, and that is the only thing that he has on his resume, and it's gotten him 2 head coaching jobs, and it's ruined 2 quarterbacks. I mean, we talked about it last week. I don't think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback, but he's ruined 2 quarterbacks.
He hasn't had the chance. He might not be a
caliber
great quarterback,
players.
but certainly he's not going to get any better with Adam Gase.
Agreed. It's just this guy needs to be fired yesterday, and I don't think it's going to be too much longer before this guy's head is on a stake in New York.
And speaking of heads on stakes, Houston fans, oh boy. Well, talking about me and our UFC correspondent Blake, he actually joined us for some NFL content. We were breaking down the NFL draft. What feels like a year ago, but from there we had a video that I put up on YouTube called "Fire Bill O'Brien," and that is the second most watched, the second highest viewed video in our show's history. It's still getting, over the last 2 weeks, it still is just racking up the views, which is, it's a testament that people are still looking up the phrase "Fire Bill O'Brien."
Yeah.
on
and
YouTube.
actually, this is going to surprise you a little bit, but I think out of the 4 coaches here, I think Bill O'Brien has the one case where you don't have to hit the panic button quite yet.
No.
Because let's look at this. I mean, here's the draw that Bill O'Brien got the first 2 weeks of the year. You have an absolutely heartbreaking loss in the playoffs last year where you had a 24-0 lead with one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league who just signed a massive extension, and you just absolutely blow it to a Chiefs team that's just better than you in almost every facet, but they had a 24-point lead. You thought that would have counted for something.
You would think.
Week 1, week 2, you get put on Thursday night, opening night, against the Chiefs, against a team you just got blown out by. Then you have to go against the Baltimore Ravens, who I think are the best team in the NFL, and I don't think it's close.
No.
And I think this is one of those situations where we don't know yet if this Texans team is bad because of the teams they've played, and they very might well be a bad team going forward, but you cannot write the book on them quite yet because of the teams that they've played and because of the hand that they've been dealt. And Bill O'Brien's had success over the last couple of years. He's won divisions. He's got a good track record. He's got a winnable division still, even with the Titans being 2-0. They still are not out of this thing. It's not like they're going to run away with this division.
No.
So Bill O'Brien, where I think he should be stripped of his GM duties because he clearly does not have any grasp on the value of players and the value of draft picks. But as a coach, he's not the worst he could do.
You took the words right out of my mouth with there. I think he's not a good head coach, but he is I'll call him an acceptable head coach.
Yeah.
He can fill in for a spot and
he's a replacement level head coach.
He's not going to light the world on fire. He will be average. But we've seen his ability as a GM, and oh boy, is it not good. It's not good. It's a hot dumpster fire with his GM abilities. No, there's almost no reason you should ever have the head coach as your GM, no matter how good of a head coach he is. You just don't do it. It's a separate job. It's 2 different jobs. You need 2 different people for that.
Except Bill Belichick.
Okay. The one exception is the greatest coach of all time. I'm okay with that being the exception.
But Bill O'Brien is not in that class of coach. I promise you.
Bill O'Brien is not even close to Bill Belichick. No. Bill O'Brien could hardly be a quality control coach for Bill Belichick's staff at this point. Bill O'Brien, he's the kind of guy that'll trade away his star player and throw in a second-round pick just for the hell of it. Okay? I don't know why he's still a GM. I really don't. There's no reason he should be a GM. I'm okay with him being the coach. But as a GM, no, cut him. Can't do it. And if it's a package deal, it's better just to let him go altogether.
I mean, would it be one of the best press conferences ever if Bill O'Brien, as the GM, made an announcement to fire himself as the GM? I mean, that would be something I would, pay-per-view for.
If he did that, I would actually respect
that. Might
him.
flip the book on it. I would actually change the narrative pretty quick there.
Oh, here we go. Alex, this is what's going to happen. Bill O'Brien, press conference, he announces that as a GM, he's firing himself as a head coach, and it becomes a comedy. He becomes likable. He joins Barstool. Okay?
I think that's a logical career path for him. I don't think that's the worst thing that he could do.
It's not, I don't know if he's funny or not, but he's probably better at Barstool than he is running a football team.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say no. Have you seen the way that man looks on a Sunday afternoon? He's got the glasses, the weird hat, the chin.
Oh.
He does not have a lot of positive attributes to him. The only thing that he's got going for him is freaking Deshaun Watson is so good.
Poor guy, dude.
Oh my gosh, not looking good for him. But let's get done talking about these bad coaches and let's get into these suspect power rankings.
Let's end the show, of course, with our power rankings. Starting off at number 5, a team that you tried to warn me about, and a team that I'm actually starting to really respect right now. The Rams are making their debut on the top 5. They go from unranked to the 5th best team in the league. I think you're happy with this one, right?
I'm happy with their addition to the top 5. I think they should be a little bit higher because they've beaten 2 quality teams here. I mean, obviously the NFC East is
really pushing quality with the Eagles.
Listen. The NFC East is not a good division, but the Eagles are a Super Bowl winning team in the last 3 years. They beat them in Philly. Obviously, there's no fans, anything like that, but it's still...
There's no one throwing snowballs at Santa Claus.
It's one of those NFC, it's one of those West teams traveling east for a 10 o'clock game. It's not an easy situation
No,
to be in. I mean, the Vegas line had the Eagles as favorites here. I don't think that speaks to
I did not like that line at all. That
the
was
difficulty of this game. And they also won going away. They won by 18 points here. It wasn't really close. They kind of blew them out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think as the year progresses, that Cowboys win is going to look a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those situations where they don't have really many holes on their team as far. The only thing that I can really see that's going to hurt them is injuries, which you can say for about any team. But I think with a team as top heavy as the Rams, you worry about injuries to their key players. And if they don't have that throughout the year, they have a very, very high floor, and their ceiling is a Super Bowl contending team, I believe.
Aaron Donald has to stay healthy.
Yep.
Jared Goff has to just not suck in the
Yep.
offense. Just keep feeding Higbee and Cup, and they'll be okay.
Yep,
Number
agreed.
4, I have the Packers. They are moving down one spot, and so is another team above them, but that's just because I have upward movement. So I got nothing bad against the Packers. They had a really good game, and it showed the grit early that this team has. The caveat is, I mean, it's a bit of an excuse, but at the same time, it's the Lions.
Yeah.
It's a good game. It's always a good game because it's no matter how bad the team is, they're still a professional football team, and it's never easy to beat a professional football team. That's just fact. Even the Browns, where they're 0-16, they still have really good talent, and also
Yep.
any given Sunday, you know that.
Agreed. And I think one of the biggest things about the start of this year for the Packers is, you talk about any given Sunday, any given team,
Mhm.
but it's also you start the year with 2 division wins going away, and that almost, it puts fear into the division. I know the Bears are 2-0 as well, but I think they're a fraudulent 2-0.
Yeah.
But when you have the first tiebreaker being division record,
Mhm.
and you already start off 2-0 against 2 of the teams that people were picking the Lions as a dark horse in the NFC.
The
People were
Vikings
saying
are
the
supposed to
Vikings
be
with their new
division winner.
Agreed. And they embarrassed both of those teams. I know the Vikings score didn't end up as closely as it, or didn't end up as big of a blowout as
Mhm.
it actually was in the field. But the Packers are looking good. Their offense looks good. Their 2 positions where they drafted their top 2 picks on AJ Dillon and Jordan Love, it clearly lit a fire under Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers because those guys are playing, with their tails on fire.
Aaron Jones
putting
put up
up
like
incredible
50
numbers.
points on fantasy.
Oh my gosh. He
I-
played really, really well. And
Shout out to anyone that has to play against him because I am sorry.
yeah, it's tough. It's a tough situation there. But, it speaks volumes to how Aaron Rodgers responds to criticism.
He's
And
such a
I
competitor.
mean, this is one of the most
right?
this is one of the most vengeful quarterbacks we've ever seen. And if you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile.
A pissed
And
off Aaron Rodgers.
This is not an Aaron Rodgers I want to see this year. But, I think this division is in a good spot with the Packers. They're
See, I never
going to be able to put some distance behind them, and they're going to be in a good situation when it comes to December and January.
I never knew I wanted to watch a pissed off Aaron Rodgers, but now since I've seen him, I love it. It's one of the greatest things in football.
It's exciting. Yeah.
That guy's just on a man on the mission, and there's no one stopping him right now. Now
He's
I'm
not
just,
washed.
No, by far no. The next 2 teams, I'm just going to give you my third and second. I'm going to say it together. The third is the Kansas City Chiefs moving down one because I had the Seahawks going above the Chiefs based off of what we saw in weeks 1 and 2. I'm not talking about potential. I'm talking about things that it's proven and that we've seen. My problem with the Chiefs is that you gave a lot of credit to the Chargers defense, which I do agree. They are a solid defense down there in LA. But at the same time, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, that's not an excuse for that offense to put up 23 points to get bailed out by your kicker, making a 58 in the 53-yard field goal. Putting up 2 touchdowns as the Kansas City Chiefs is not something that they should be doing when you have a $500 million quarterback. You have Travis Kelce, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you have wide receivers that that should be taking the roof off of any defense. It's kind of worrying to me, that a rookie quarterback that had 30 minutes to prepare to be a starter against the defending Super Bowl champs was able to do that well against your defense. We know that the Kansas City defense has always been suspect. That's always a weak point. But at the same time, I am not worried about the Kansas City Chiefs, but what I saw was a bit worrying. And at the same time, the Seahawks performing really well against a Bill Belichick team. You can never count the Patriots. Their defense is suspect. Their passing and their running defense is suspect. But I think there's plenty of room to improve. At the same time, you have the MVP in Russell Wilson, and the offense is really good. DK Metcalf really stepping up. He's made a big jump so far between his rookie and sophomore season. There is no sophomore slump for him. He's looking like a really good acquisition. And then Tyler Lockett, he's still Tyler Lockett. So I love the Seahawks right now.
Yeah,
But tell me why I'm wrong.
I wish Russell Wilson wasn't on the Seahawks team because he's just so hard to root against and he's so hard to doubt. But here's my main issues with this whole ranking system. I know this is an arbitrary ranking. The power rankings don't stick.
They don't mean anything.
But the Chiefs had to play a division rival on the road. They have not had a lot of success against the Chargers on the road. Justin Herbert played significantly better than Tyrod Taylor would have ever played. This defense is legit. They were able to grind out a win when they didn't have anything working on the offensive end. I mean, the fact, when you were watching that game, you're like, how are the Chiefs going to score? I mean, you either thought that, okay, Patrick Mahomes is just going to pull him out of nowhere and score, which he ended up doing with that Tyreek Hill bomb. But, I mean, everything was working against the Chiefs this week, and they still were able to pull out a win. Their kicker, it's unfair that they have that good of a kicker.
Harrison Butker, man.
What worries me about the Seahawks is they gave up 397 passing yards to Cam Newton, who's a goal line running back. I mean, he was not known as a passing quarterback in Carolina. He had guys he was thrown to with Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry, Damiere Byrd. James White didn't even have a great receiving game. They didn't throw to tight ends, and they still put up almost 400 passing yards. This is something that is an issue, especially when you're going against the NFC West. The Rams are going to absolutely slice and dice them. The Cardinals are going to dice them. The Niners, I don't know how those games are going to go because their rush defense looks okay at this point. They haven't gone against a ton of offenses that have a good rushing offense, have a potent offense like that. But
see,
I'm worried about the Seahawks pass defense.
The thing with the Seahawks though is that the whole power rankings could change this week when they take on the Cowboys. This is a huge test. They go back-to-back big tests between the Patriots straight to the Cowboys, and especially with Dak, that the offense is looking really good. Their defense is going to be tested. So
I'm worried about this game on an Alex Crop take basis because I was super high on the Cowboys, and I've been pushing back a lot against the Seahawks team. So if the Seahawks come away with this game with like a 30-19 or 30-20 win against the Cowboys, I'm gonna have to put a sock in my mouth
for you and me both. There's a lot writing on this because we're opposites, right? I'm big on Seahawks.
Yeah,
I'm not as big on the Cowboys. You're big on the Cowboys.
Here's the thing: is the Seahawks are a good team. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see the merit in putting them in the second spot when the Chiefs beat a division rival on the road. The Packers are 2-0 in the division. The Rams have looked impressive against two teams.
You got the Seahawks at 5? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't have the Seahawks at 5. I think they're probably the 4th best team. I think the Chiefs and the Packers have done enough to put them at 2 and 3. I think until the Ravens or the Chiefs lose against a team that's not the Ravens or the Chiefs, because they obviously play Monday night, they need to be the first and second team in the power rankings because those are the two best teams in the NFL right now, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
But the Seahawks have the 3rd best weapon in the NFL with Russell Wilson, and until they get really abused by the offense or the opposing team's passing offense, and it leads to a loss, that they're still a top 5 team, but I just don't see the merit in putting the Chiefs down.
That's fair.
The Seahawks
that's reasonable, but I still disagree. And the best team in the league, still haven't said them yet because we've been waiting for the number 1 spot. It is, of course, The New Orleans Saints. Now I'm just playing. They're not even in the top 5 anymore. It's a Baltimore Ravens. Come on now. Is there really any other answer?
The Ravens are so good. The
It's-
Ravens are so good. I mean, they're
offense,
built
defense.
to be a regular season team.
Well, see, once they get, well, it's not the hard thing for the Ravens is pretty much like you gotta take the regular season seriously, but we just haven't seen the proof in the playoffs. We've seen the proof in the regular season, so it's really just a wait and see until we actually get the postseason with them. But right now, Ravens are still your number 1 team, 5-1. Rams, Packers, Chiefs, Seahawks, and Ravens. Saints not even the top 5 anymore. I might have them in the top 8. Might.
Yep, I think the best comparison I can make with the Ravens, I think they're the Bucks of the NFL because they're gonna be the best team in the regular season because they have the best regular season player like the Bucks do with Giannis. But once they get into a playoff situation where a team can game plan against them and can set up a defense, they can build a wall like they do with Giannis, and they can build a run stuffing defense and make Lamar Jackson beat you over the top. But when you're in the regular season and when you're vying for playoff seeding, and this is also a year that hasn't been dealt with before where the number 1 seed is significantly more important than it has been in the past years.
Mm-hmm.
When the Ravens get in that position, agreed, and they get to play, the easiest draw in the second round as well, and they're, obviously the home field advantage doesn't mean much, but that bye is significant this year. It just
that's
lets
why
them
this
get
Monday night game has so much
prepare for a
riding
team.
on it because the bye is going to be the Ravens or the Chiefs unless something catastrophic happens. So there's this week 3. It can be a lot of fun.
We're in for a dandy.
As long as no one else gets hurt, I think we'll be okay. But that's going to wrap it for us. Let's plug everything. www.thefourthandlong.com. Got Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere else you get your podcasts from. Some new shows to look forward to this week because we have, if you haven't seen it already, go check our interview with DC Defenders kicker, kicker of the decade for the Boise State Broncos, one of the best kickers in XFL history. Tyler Rosas joined us. That dropped on Monday. Fun stuff right there. We talked about love. I mean, we just love the XFL. Went in depth a little bit about the coveted beer snake, and then you gotta love the beer snake, right?
I love the beer snake. Oh my gosh,
so good. And then we have our AFL. The last few rounds recap show is coming out this week. Tune in next week for our AFL. Love some Austrian. We got NFL right here. You gotta show love for the Australian Football League. We're gonna be having our finals preview show next week. And speaking of AFL, because Alex, I know you're a fan as well too. Because
I am a fan.
It's just a great sport.
It's entertaining, man. It's exhilarating. On a Friday, Saturday night.
You don't even have to know what's going on. You'll know how the game is played. If you just watch it, you'll have fun, guaranteed. But talking about that, can we talk new merch? Because like I'm showing right here, my Footy is Underrated t-shirt. Just got this bad boy in the mail today. It dropped. You can go check that out. Go to our website, which is, of course, thefourthandlong.com. Head over to the apparel page and check out our website at Teespring. Check out our store. A lot of really good merch here. Honestly, might be a fan favorite. The fanny pack. It's still available. The fanny pack is available. So go get that merch. Alex, thank you once again for having some friendly discussions sometimes. And I'm so sorry about the Niners.
I mean, same feelings go towards the Broncos. I mean, I'm almost happy for you because it's kind of a cop out now that the Broncos are injured because they were a bad team to begin with a bad quarterback. But now that you have injuries, you can be like, oh yeah, we got injured the whole year, and all of a sudden it's the best thing that could have happened to the Broncos this year, and you're welcome for it happening, but it's bad for the Niners.
Yeah.
Bad for the Niners because we actually had a chance this year.
Right. Yeah. But thanks for joining us for week 2. Have a great week 3, everyone, and we will catch you guys in the next show.